He sold his soul for money, not simply out of greed, but competition, to be ranked above all. He didn't need the money. Pride and ego was the fire that burned deep. With his eyes wide open, he thought he knew what he got himself into. He got it all. The world and all that was promised. But the price? The time was too short. Too cruel. Just worst. Find out at the end of the story.
They said the candle was cursed. But the old merchant of Uroma refused to believe such things. On a humid evening, as the market winds howled and thunder crawled across the sky, he staggered into the dim shrine of forgotten gods. Dust cloaked the walls, and cobwebs veiled the idols like a long-abandoned ornament, and silence pressed down like a warning. He took a long breath to allay his fear. He should have turned back, but greed had already led his feet there. His heart longing and his hands craving an outreach, as he looked at the center of the shrine, where a single candle stood, thick and dark as if molded from midnight treasury itself. It burned with a flame unlike any other, blue at the core, golden at the edges, tall as if it wanted to reach the skies. The merchant's breath caught, as he admitted to himself that he had never seen fire glow with such beauty. His guess was focused, and suddenly a whisper stirred through the room. This candle burns twice for its keeper, once for desire, and once for debt. He fidgeted and looked around as the words brushed his ear, though no one stood beside him, but he was certain that he heard the words distinctly and was sure of what he heard. He spun around, but there was only shadow. The whisper returned, smoother, hungrier this time. Take it, and your wishes will flare brighter than the sun. But beware, every flame must die. This time, it was more of a warning than a statement. The merchant trembled, but greed clenched tighter than fear. Men always want more, and he really wanted more than he had. Without further hesitation, he reached out and seized the candle and hurried out into the darkness of the night as fear accompanied him all the way. From that day, fortune poured upon him like floodwaters. His wealth multiplied beyond his expectation, and the flow of wealth was steady and almost as if he did need to lift a finger for fortune to manifest. His wares sold faster than he could count them, and he basically only needed to make sure that he didn't run out of stock to meet up with demands. Rivals stumbled into ruin and disregards, while nobles sought his favor to make a few sales and remain in business. Within a very short time, he built a mansion and adorned it with golden doors, and his name traveled beyond villages like a song. People admired his success and young ones studied his craft for mentorship. At least, what they could see with their eyes, in the open. And yet, in the secret, the candle never burned out. Every night, no matter how long it stood aflame, the wax remained tall, and the wick eternal. Until one evening, as he sat drunk on riches, his eyes held his attention as he noticed something strange. The flame was not one, but two. Two flames, side by side of each other. Twin fires licked upward, blue and gold, casting shadows that swayed against the wall like dancers in battle. One of the flames seemed calmer and more concerned with its ascension and diffusion into the sky, while the second flame seemed obviously aggressive and almost as if inviting him towards the candle. And then the whispers returned again. The candle burns twice, and the second fire has begun. This time he heard and recognized the distinct whisper. This time he knew that he was into some kind of ritual. He was sure that he was now involved with some powers or something metaphysical. But he had already crossed the point of no return. And for goodness sake, whatever it was has brought him more fortune, influence and respect. He retired to bed, but he could not sleep that night. His eyes stayed fixed on the candle's twin flames. They flickered in strange rhythm, sometimes they leaned together as if whispering secrets, or staring at him and talking about him, and sometimes they pushed apart like enemies at war. A dread grew in his chest, but he was in a state of shilly-sholly. The first flame had brought him everything he ever wanted and even more, he thought. What then was the second flame meant to bring? The answer came swiftly. The next morning, a servant burst into his chambers, trembling and gasping for air. As if he had been running all the way to meet his master. Master, the canary warehouse. The canary warehouse, it has burned to the ground. All the silk, all the spices are gone. Nothing was salvaged. The merchant leapt to his feet as fury slowly seized him. But before he could rage, his phone started ringing. He looked at the phone and ignored the call because it was from another one of his servant. He suspected that he wanted to tell him the bad news that he had already heard. He let out his rage and almost screamed. But the cell phone continued to ring non-stop. Then he picked up the phone and received the call, screaming into the phone and telling the caller to stop disturbing him. Suddenly he became quiet and listened as the other servant on the other end of the call hit him with a worse news: the 2 containers bringing his latest importation has drowned in the sea. The merchant fell on the ground, but his servants and others were able to quickly revive him with water, poured all over his head. He got himself together and moved out. But when he came back home by evening, word arrived that the governor had seized one of his ships, accusing him of fraud, and the evidence against him was massive. He needed to disappear from public eyes immediately to buy time for damage control. Misfortune fell upon him like stones tumbling down a mountain. The merchant clenched his fists. No. This cannot be chance. Someone or some people must have plotted against me. But when he returned to his chambers, the truth stared back at him. The candle now burned brighter than ever, its twin flames taller, fiercer, crackling as though they devoured not wax, but his very fortune. That night, the whispers came again: you took desire. Now debt is owed. What burns in your candle must burn in your life. The merchant roared into the shadows, then I will snuff you out. He seized a bronze lid and slammed it over the candle. The room darkened. For a heartbeat, he felt relief, until he lifted the lid. The candle still burned. Untouched. Untamed. Eternal. Worse still, he saw that the candle's base was no longer wax, but something softer, pinker, like flesh. His stomach turned. From that night on, the second flame grew hungrier. His wealth unraveled, his allies abandoned him, and his body began to weaken. Fevers plagued him, his hands shook, and his once proud eyes sank deep into his skull. But the candle never dimmed. And still, people whispered of his fall. Some said the gods had cursed him for greed. Others swore he had bargained with spirits. But none knew of the candle that burned twice in the shadows of his chamber. The merchant's decline spread through Uroma like wildfire gossip. Once, he had been envied for his wealth and power. Now, neighbors watched as his mansion decayed, its golden doors dulled, its servants fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. But still, every night, the candle burned in his chamber. Twin flames, tall and merciless. Desperate, the merchant sought help. He summoned the high priest of the river goddess. The priest entered the room, chanting, his staff shaking with cowries and bells. He paused when he saw the candle, his eyes widening. "This is no offering of men," the priest whispered. "This is a tether. It drinks your life as it drinks air." "Then destroy it," the merchant begged. The priest raised his staff, struck the candle, once, twice, thrice. Sparks flew, but the candle stood unbroken. Flames swayed calmly, as if mocking. The priest staggered back. "I can do nothing. The fire is not here to be killed. It is here to count." The merchant cursed him and threw him out. Next, he turned to a sorcerer, a woman feared in 3 villages. Her eyes were milky white, her words sharp as blades. She circled the candle, muttering incantations, sprinkling powders, spitting into the flame. For a moment, the fire dimmed, and hope filled the merchant's chest. But then the flames flared higher, so high that the shadows writhed on the walls like beasts. The sorceress recoiled, shrieking. "You fool! Do you not see? This is not merely a candle. This is your soul. To kill it is to kill you." The merchant froze, his mouth dry. "If the candle burns to nothing," the sorceress hissed, "so shall you. The second flame is your end, creeping closer with every breath you take." She fled, refusing even the gold he had promised. Alone, the merchant sank to his knees. He had gained the world, and now it crumbled into dust before his eyes. But one thought refused to leave him: if this candle is my soul, can it be bargained with? That night, he carried the candle back to the shrine where he had first found it. The idols loomed in silence, their stone eyes fixed upon him. He placed the candle at their feet and cried out, "Take it back. I return it. Let me live as I was, even as a poor man, just let me live." The flames wavered. For a heartbeat, he thought the gods had heard. But then the whispers slithered through the shrine, chilling him to the bone: "What is given cannot be returned. What is burned cannot be unburned." The candle's flames leaned closer to each other, as if preparing for the final embrace. The merchant fled into the night, clutching the cursed object to his chest, sobbing like a child. The merchant grew gaunt. His mansion echoed with emptiness, for even the rats no longer found food within its walls. He hid from the eyes of the market, ashamed of his ruin, clutching the candle like a dying man clutches breath. Every night, he stared at the flames. And every night, they seemed closer to fusing into one. The whispers taunted him: desire was fed. Now debt must be paid. One stormy evening, thunder cracked so loud it rattled his bones. The candle's flames suddenly leaned into each other, merging for the first time. A single, fierce fire blazed upward, brighter than the sun, flooding the chamber with cruel light. The merchant screamed as heat seared his skin. His reflection in the bronze mirror warped and melted. He staggered back, but the shadows of his own body danced around him like mockery. And then he saw it, at the candle's base, where wax should be, his flesh pulsed. Veins twisted, muscle throbbed, and each drip of molten wax was a drop of his own blood. The truth crashed down upon him: he was not holding the candle. The candle was holding him. In terror, he hurled it against the wall. But instead of shattering, the candle clung, embedding itself into the stone as if it had roots. The flame burned higher, roaring like a beast. The whispers rose into a chant: twice it burns. Twice it takes. The merchant felt his chest tighten. His lungs heaved, his heart throbbed like it would burst. He collapsed, crawling toward the door, but the fire followed him, stretched across the floor, licking at his limbs. When servants entered the next morning, they found nothing but ash scattered across the chamber floor. No body. No trace of their master. Only a candle, sitting calmly on the stone table, with its single flame flickering faintly, as if waiting. And they say, to this day, if one enters that ruined mansion on a moonless night, the candle burns again with two flames. It waits for the next greedy soul to claim its promise, whispering, "This candle burns twice, once for desire, and once for debt."
And that's how the story ended, at least for now. So, let me know what you think about the story in the comment below. Oh, I love to hear your comments, and that way the story continues. Please, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed already, and also remember to share the story with your loved ones for a good time. Stay blessed.